I agree.
And then this one came in.
Techno Trooper donated $200. How many bodies is too many bodies for a female? What is past the threshold where it is unacceptable?
It's a good question. I think depends on the age. I mean, once you start getting into, I'm not saying it's 100% deal breaker, but certainly once
Hang on. Brian, he said for a female.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, like as in too many bodies?
From a woman's perspective, how many bodies?
Oh, I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
I think it can be read the other way. Too many bodies for a female to have?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear your perspective.
Yeah.
I want to hear yours.
I mean, it's not a deal breaker immediately, but I think once you get above 10, then it's an eyebrow raise.
What if you have 10 in the time span of you having, from the age that you did have sex, let me just make up a number, 19 to, let's say, like I'm 26, 10, right? But let's say I'm 33-year-old virgin, and then I end up discovering sex, and I have 10 or 12 just because I finally let it go. Mm-hmm. But it also comes with accountability, like Andrew was saying.
Yeah.
So, is it that really such a deal breaker part, or is that too much just because of the time span of it, or is it just because of the experience of you being with 10 men?
So you say the question is essentially a woman who's had sex with one guy a year for X amount of years versus a woman who's had sex with 10 partners in the span of 1 year.
Is it the time span, or is it the number, people, or is it the number?
Both.
I think we'd look at it. I think most men would look at it the same way. Though I think it would throw a greater red flag if they did them kind of like back to back to back.
Yeah.
That would show even less kind of restraint. But I think that they would look at the overall count. So the way I look at it is this. This is an arbitrary metric. I'm not going to deny that it's an arbitrary metric. It's based on preference, right? There's nothing that I can point to where I can say, this is the dyed-in-the-wool metric which every man follows or should follow. But I can say this as a almost definite across the board. The less, the better. And since it is always the case that it is the less, the better, at least in almost all men that I have talked to, then every single time that you have sex with a new man, this is going to lower your value in the eyes of most men. So that's how I would frame it. I couldn't give you an exact number, but I don't think I need to, if you know that every single one above one makes you worth less, at least in the eyes of men, than if you had zero. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. But would you also agree that there are other things that you could bring to the table that could raise your value? So it's kind of like this chart graph of different things that come together to make a whole.
No.
So one's a
here's
big
the thing.
deal
I would say on the issuance of body count loyalty is what that's pointing to. So let me explain this the best way that I can. Paternity testing is a modern invention. It is something which is very recent. Before the idea of paternity testing came around, how would a man be able to judge if his offspring was his or if he had been cuckolded and his wife had slept with somebody else, had their offspring, and now this man is raising offspring unwittingly, which is not his own? The only way to really determine that metric would be to have a woman who was a virgin, and the reason that you would want that is because then you know that this woman is devoted only to you. Whereas if she'd had multiple sexual partners before that, it's much more difficult to make the determination she would be with you. And now with paternity testing, we know how many women lie about paternity. It's actually a great many more than we ever thought. So I think that this is something which is hardwired into men for a good reason.
Yeah, but just also because a woman's a virgin in a relationship doesn't mean she's not going to cheat on you and go run around and
do all that stuff. I think that the likelihood, though, that a woman who is a virgin in a relationship with you does run around is going to be far less than the likelihood of a woman who is promiscuous doing so. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, what if you've just awakened this what if Lauren here is some hidden freak and she gets awakened and now she's just running around town?
Hold on. So really quick on the whole cheating thing. Really quick on the whole cheating thing. Me personally, while it can be an indicator for potential infidelity, at least for me, That's not really the primary reason. Frankly, I just think it's gross.
Yeah.
I can't even articulate precisely why. I couldn't even, why I actually could.
But that's why you think it's gross.
It's just disgusting.
I can
That's why you think
respect
it's
that a little bit
disgusting.
more. I agree with that opinion more because that I can understand that
Yeah,
one more because
but that's
I think
why
it's
it's disgusting. Don't you understand? Like, the reason that men find it disgusting is because of that hardwired, innate understanding of if you're sleeping with multiple men, I cannot determine offspring. That's why it's disgusting to men. That's why they find it gross. It's like, it's not enough to just say it's gross, right? The justification for it is very simple. And so when we dive into this, like, I'd like to engage directly with your argument, right? And your argument is, what if you awaken the beast? Now you've slept with this virgin woman, and wouldn't you be, if you awaken that beast, isn't she? Well, I suppose it's possible.
yeah,
but
the milkman's
here's what-
coming by. And
but here's what the data shows us. Here's what we know from the data. Because women who marry as virgins have only the sample size of their husband, right? That's the sample that they have. They think that's the best sex in the world. What the fuck would
Yeah.
they have to compare it to?
Right.
yeah, I actually have friends that multiple
Nothing. They have
friends
nothing to
that have
compare it to. So
been together
that's why
since
the
high school.
longevity and the faithfulness in those relationships tends to be much higher than it is in the general public.
Yeah,
the likelihood of
I
it
have
happening.
some
I
very
see what you
happily
mean.
married couple friends that have been together since high school that have never been with anybody else. So I totally see that. I've also seen on the other side of the spectrum, really unhappy people that wanted to resented that they wish they had more experience. And I've also seen people with a lot of experience.
I
who
can't
have-
argue with your anecdotes.
Yeah.
I can't argue with anecdotal experience, so I'm going to defer to what we see
Right.
from polls and data from people who are studied who enter into virgin relationships